So one of these cameras is worth over £2,000. One of these cameras I bought for £349. Can you tell the difference? One is a 20.6 megapixel camera. The other is a 24.5 megapixel camera. One of them is a Panasonic. The other one is a Sony. The Sony is a camcorder. The Panasonic is an SLR, DSLR, a mirrorless camera, an L-mount camera. Which one? Can you tell which one is which? Leave a comment below to see if you're right. Was it camera 1? Is the Panasonic or Sony? Or is it camera 2? Which is the Panasonic or the Sony? Leave in the description below which one you think is which. I'll do a side by side for comparison as well. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Hi everyone, welcome to IoT X's on Tech. Thank you very much for joining me today. So yes, on today's episode, I have had the great pleasure of using this, the Panasonic Lumix S5. So I don't know if you've seen my live stream that I did a couple of weeks ago, but I've seen a lot of adverts for the Panasonic loan service. Advertise you can borrow this one, the Panasonic Lumix S5 or a Panasonic Lumix S1. So I went for the Lumix S5. Now this came out around about 8 months ago. Thereabouts. There was a lot of videos on YouTube about the release of this. So I applied, and lo and behold, they got in contact with me, a company called DK AVS Services, Audiovisual Services, down in Slough area, and they kindly sent me this to have a go with for just over a week, which was very nice of them. Thank you very much, DK AVS. So let's give you some specs about the camera, shall we? So this is a 24.5 megapixel camera. It has a ton of recording features on it. Takes really good photos. The only downside, as with a lot of YouTubers have mentioned, if you're watching their videos that is, the autofocus isn't that spectacular. Now in my opening scene, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm hoping the autofocus was picking me up because I did put on facial autofocus tracking. But yes, this is such a lovely camera to use. As you can see, I've managed to use the cage for my Panasonic Lumix G5. Thankfully it fits in there. As you can see, I've modified it a bit with a side leather grip that I bought separately to the cage, and it just fits so well in my hand. Unfortunately, the battery compartment is not accessible to the bottom. The HDMI port is, and the USB-C charging port. Unfortunately, the headphone port and microphone port, they're not accessible because the type of cage that I've got is not suitable for this camera, but it does fit in there nicely. You can't access, unfortunately, either the SD slots on the side, so every time you need to take the SD card out, you have to take the camera out of the cage, which is no big problem. I'm happy with that. All the dials, they're easily accessible on the top. You can see what you're touching there, and of course the viewfinder. Now with a cap, I kept knocking it against my cap when I was taking photos of the day, but then I realized when I got home afterwards I could have just taken the top handle off, but that's me, isn't it? All right, so let's get some close-up shots of this beautiful thing. So as I mentioned, this is a 24.5 megapixel camera, the Panasonic Lumix S5. It has a lovely resolution on the pop-out screen on the back that's fully tiltable as well. Have it facing towards you, up, down, left, right, etc. Well, not left, right, because it only comes out on the left-hand side. But as you can see on the back, you've got the preview button, you've got live viewfinder button, you've got your focusing controls, you've got single, continuous, manual focus, you've got an AF on button, you've got L joystick there, you've got Q, which is a quick menu button. Of course, then you've got your menu set button in the middle, which is also like a joypad as well, up, down, left, right. We've got your return or your photo delete button, and then you've got a display button as well, which comes in really handy when you're in the menus, because if you're not sure what one of the menu options do, then you can just hit the display button, DISP, and it gives you a brief description of what that menu option does. On the left, you've got USB-C charging and a mini HDMI port, as well as a headphone socket and a microphone socket. On the right-hand side then of the camera, you've got a little flap where it's got 2 SD card slots. So you can have just a normal SD-XC Type 1, which is version 60. You can also then have an SD-XC Type 2 card, which is a version 90, which is really fast for one, for taking videos, but also two, for taking photos. Like if you're doing burst shot in your photos, you just hold on the shutter button, it'll fire away. I believe it's 30 frames per second with this camera, which is crazy. And then just above that, then you've got a little remote socket there, which is one of those tiny little 2.5mm remotes on there. On the top, we've got your normal photo taking mode. You've got your burst, second burst, you've got time lapse, and you've got a timer. On the dial on the right hand side, you've got movie manual mode. You've got manual mode, shutter, aperture, program, intelligent auto, and you've got your three presets there, and slow and quick. Now I went down to a park down in Cardiff called Roath Park to try and use the slow and quick feature. My first go, I was trying to film, I think it was a pigeon or a seagull, and the focusing was just rubbish. It just would not pick it up. Even though I had it on continuous autofocus, it just didn't pick up the bird flying at all. So next couple of tries, I left it on manual focus. I tried, focusing on the bird myself. Sometimes it's quite tricky, especially if they're flying away or towards you. There is a knack to using autofocus on cameras. I kind of did a good job, looking at this clip by here anyway. Also on the top then, you've got one of your programmable dials. You've got your big red record button. You've got white balance, ISO, and exposure. And of course, you've got your front jog dial button. Got your front dial, and also then your shutter release button there. On the front of the camera, we have what I found really, really useful was this button by here, but it's also programmable. So I had it set for, so you can see through the screen on the back of the camera what your ISO setting was and your shutter speed setting. So when I went out on a camera shooting, so when I went out on a photo shooting trip with my friend Charlotte, here's a picture of Charlotte down by the river taking a photo. I used that function quite a lot to preview what the lens, not the lens, but what the sensor was picking up. So whether my ISO was too high, or sorry, not my ISO, to make sure my my f-stop wasn't too high, or my shutter speed was too low or too high, and just making the picture either too dark or making the picture overexposed and way too white. At the bottom there, you've got your lens release button. So the lens on this is huge compared to my Panasonic G5, which is a micro four thirds camera. This uses an L mount lens, so just line up the red dots and then twist and then clicks. So on the side of the lens, we've got an autofocus and a manual focus button. Most of the time I left it in manual focus because I thought the focusing was better when I did it myself. And this lens comes with a 20 to 60mm zoom. The focusing on this, the range on the focusing, I thought was really, really good. So when I was down in Roath Park and when I was out and about with Charlotte, I did some quite close-ups and was able to get the focusing really good with this. As you can see on the screen now, I'm just flowing through a couple of pictures there. Really pleased with how my photos have come out, considering autofocus would have been rubbish and hunting everywhere, no matter which one I put it on. But manual focus, I do love manual focusing a camera. So my G5, I've got the normal lens that comes with it. I think it's a 14 to 42 lens, but then also bought a Tamron, I think it was 80 to 200, but then in a micro four thirds camera system, it doubles that because of the adapter that I have to use. So I do really, really love this camera. I love a camera, yes, I know, I just said that. It's nicely weighted, it is weighty, so it's going to give you more stabilization when you're taking photos, or indeed, obviously, when you're taking videos. Videos with this, I found, look amazing. Obviously, it's got the vlog in it. It's also got loads of other video settings on there as well. But one thing I found with this camera is not the camera at all. No, it's my PC over there. When I was shooting in .mov, which is an Apple codec, which I use Sony Vegas, so I had to download QuickTime. I did that ages ago. But then I had to buy the HEVC codec from Microsoft. I know, because nothing that I've got had the HEVC codec. VLC player, that'll play videos from this, no problem. But then when it comes to video editing, even on draft settings at a quarter resolution, the video was still stuttering, and I was quite gutted with that. So I've changed it to MP4. You can still get loads of great features with the MP4 video format. Thankfully, Vegas will edit that. I also downloaded DaVinci. First of all, it wouldn't play the .mov files with HEVC codec until I downloaded the codec from the Microsoft Store. So if you're a Windows user and you've got DaVinci, then you'd need to download the old QuickTime player from apple.com. I think the last update was like 2016, so a bit dodgy that one. And if you haven't got the HEVC codec, you will need to buy it from the Microsoft store for a massive 79 pence. I know, shocking. I had to spend 79p on a codec. 79 pence on an app. I never buy apps or anything like that. So what do I think of this camera? I think this camera is literally amazing. It's the best camera I've used, the most expensive camera that I've used as well. It's got a ton of settings in there for videographers and lots of settings in there for photographers. As I said, the manual focusing, this lens is really nice. You've got different settings on the manual focusing as well. So you can either have it like normal, or you can have it linear. Let me go into the settings. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Let's have a look at all the video settings in here. So most people who will be buying this, I'm sure that they will be going for the video settings. So image area of video. So we've got the full sensor, APS-C or pixel by pixel. I've left it on APS-C all this time. Record quality, you've got a ton of different features in here. So we've got MP4, as I said, I've set it to MP4. We've got 4K, 10-bit, 100 megabits per second, 60p. 8-bit at 30p, 10-bit 30p, 72 megabits. So you've got Cinema 4K, 30p, 422, 10-bit long GOP, but of course you can change that then. Go quick settings, and then we can change it to natural, and of course then you get your Cine D, Rec 709, and of course your Vlog, which is if you're going to be grading your video, color grading your video. So I haven't explored all of the features on this camera. Yes, I've had it for a week. So this camera, I would love to get this camera, but the price that it is, unfortunately, it's for the lens and the camera body itself, is £2,400. At the moment I can't afford this, but you never know in the future if they do come down considerably in price, or Panasonic would like to maybe loan me one for a whole year and then see what I can get up to with that. That'd be amazing. When I was down Road Park, in a way I wish I had a better zoom lens for wildlife photography, for taking photos of the flowers. Yes, it was fun, it was brilliant for that. But then my battery started dying and I forgot to take a charger with me. I didn't have a USB-C cable. But hey ho, yes, it charges via USB-C, or of course you could just buy the battery pack, battery charger that you can get for the camera as well. So this camera, I would give it an easy 10 out of 10. One for video quality, colors, etc. Yes, autofocusing, not really. 10 out of 10 for photos as well. Way better, I think, than my Panasonic G5. No, it's not a GH5, unfortunately it's a G5, which is a 16 megapixel camera. But yeah, if you'd like to buy this camera, then have a click in the video description below where there'll be a link. Don't forget as well, if you like this video, then please give us a thumbs up. If not, then hit that thumbs down button twice. Thank you very much. Thank you to all those who have subscribed already. I'm nearly at 1,000 subscribers. Hooray! Not that long to go now, fingers crossed. So thank you once again for watching today's episode of IoT X's on Tech. I'll catch you again on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.